Well, hello, friends and neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here, and welcome down the Nook. It's still holidays, so I can shoot an episode midweek, and I wanted to keep the conversation going with some scotch. And today I've got another Compass Box. Last time we talked about Spice Tree by Compass Box, and this time we're going to talk about Oak Cross. It's another blended malt, so it's all malt whiskeys, only barley, but it's blended from a variety of distilleries. So I'll talk about this. It's again all natural color, no chill filtering. Little weaker at 43%. But if you have any blended malt or some scotch, why don't you pour a glass and join me as I talk through Oak Cross from Compass Box. 3, 4. Thanks for staying with me through the break. As I said in the opener, we're still exploring some scotch together. It's still summer vacation, and I'm very, very thankful to have some time to talk to you guys. This Oak Cross is a bit of a puzzler for me. We'll get into that as we get into the whiskey itself. But on beautiful, don't you just love the labels of Compass Box? These are just fantastic works of art. And as I said in the opener, it's all non-chill filtered, natural color. This one's only 43%, but it says again, that we're going to look at some American and French oak barrels. I've said before, I love Compass Box. I really, really appreciate the transparency that John Glaser and his group really does about their Scotch whiskey. They talk. You go to their website. I'll put a little information as we talk here so you can follow along. But if you want to know more about Oak Cross or about Spice Tree that I reviewed the other day, or any of their releases, you can go to their site and they give fact sheets, or they show you the percentage of the distillery, the type of cask it was aged in, and all of that stuff, which is fantastic. Now, on the surface, I would have thought, like when I bought Oak Cross, I thought it was going to taste a little bit more like Spice Tree, but if you look at the differences here, you'll just look at natural color. That's a pretty healthy pour. You should be able to see, even in this low light, that there is either more ex-sherry or ex-wine influence in Spice Tree, or something about the way they've toasted the casks. It really is imparting significantly more color than here. In terms of composition, Oak Cross has quite a bit of Clynelish in it. I think around 46-47%. And then there's some Deloyne. I don't know if I said that right. I've got to watch Roy on how to pronounce Scotch again, Deloyne. And then, a Highland blend. And it does use, French and American oak. Now, what it doesn't talk about is, the American oak, I assume, well, it does say first fill ex-bourbon, so I know I've got some first fill ex-bourbon in here. But when it talks about the French toast, the French oak, it talks about, that it's in a lightly toasted French oak barrel. But it doesn't say where that French oak was, reconstructed, or if it held cognac or wine or sherry. Probably assume some sherry, but the coloring looks only ex-bourbon. So that's a puzzler for me, and something they didn't disclose. So if you guys know some insight into, when they build that, and over here, we'll get into some details when I do some comparison, but they also just talk about some first fill ex-bourbon, then some refill bourbon, and then they talk about the light, the medium, the heavy toasting done on the French oak cask, but doesn't talk about what the casks held previously. Let's just get into some Scotch. I've been looking forward to doing this with you guys, so let's give it a nose, give it a taste. If you've got some, why don't you sip along? This nose, very sweet. This is kind of white grape, sweet pear. Yeah, take your orchard fruits, like cut apple, cut pear, and then sweeten them up a little bit in a fruit syrup, and I think you get a pretty good idea the light and sweet nature of this nose. Let's try it on the palate. Sláinte. Up front, exactly what the pellet's telling you, right? You got some sweetness, you bring in some malt sugars, but then spicing does come, whether that's from the French oak or something else. It really feels like it's French oak. Now coating with Klein-Leash so much in here, which to me gives such a wonderful kind of waxy nature. And I was properly called out by a comment that I think I said Klein-Leash 14 was natural color and unchill filtered, and it is not natural color. Might even be filtered, but it gives such a healthy, waxy feeling. Anyways, here, I expected a bit more of that. Now, there's some coating nature. I would hope I would recognize that there's Klein-Leash in here. The flavor profile, very fruity. It is coating, but not quite as thick and waxy as just the Klein-Leash 14-year-old. Better have another sip. Now, on the second sip, I start to, and I guess as you drink this carefully, you get a little more spicing, a little more edge pepper. The spicing doesn't give a lot of depth to me. It just kind of is almost like heat and a bit of peppering with the sweeter whiskey, which is very interesting because I expected a little more depth in the spicing that I'm getting on here. Finish tends to play into that spicing a little bit. The fruiting starts to really relax. We feel like we're getting into some oaks and some spices. And then the sweetness kind of in almost a long finish. Then I get a little bit of a honeyed, like that syrupy sweetness. Very interesting. You know, when I first got this, and I actually took my time through this bottle because when I first got it, I really didn't like this bottle. I don't mean I hated it. I love everything Compass Box puts out. But what I mean is I just struggled to get at what is the essential nature of this bottle. And in some ways, I'm still struggling. This is tasty, and I think there are many viewers out there that might really like Oak Cross. I got it for a phenomenal deal. No regrets on the bottle. But the fruit comes up light and a little indistinct, and then the spicing comes up a little bit hot and spicy and not... I don't know what to say. I think it might be a little bit about balance. And I don't talk a lot about balance with you guys, but while all the components that I'm tasting in here are good, I don't seem to come back to this. I don't seem to love this bottle, which is why it took so long before I talked to you guys about it. And so for me, and it's always just me, it's always just my palate. I think this sits, like for me, like about a 3.5 stars. And I know where the pricing went. I wouldn't pay what I got. Now I got it for a great deal, so I'm happy that I got it. But it just doesn't light me up like I want it to, even though clearly another quality Compass Box release. As you know, if I have time or have the Scotch, I like to compare what I'm really evaluating today with something that I've done previously. Usually not so quick, but this time I thought, well, let's compare it to Spice Tree. You know, it also talks bourbon and French oak, ex-bourbon. You know, the coloring is radically different. So clearly there's either a heavier wine influence or they've done some different toasting. I'll put the details here, but also 46%. This is significantly richer on the nose, both in the fruiting that now brings a more resinous or raisiny or like a little bit of red to it, whereas this nose, yeah, this is kind of like a peach sweetness almost, whereas this definitely darker, and it also already on the nose hints at some other spices going on. Let's try it on the palate. Sancha. For my palate, significantly richer dram. Instead of just sort of spicing, here I've got layers of a little bit of clove. Was that an edge of ginger? Where is that going? Is that like a candied fruit from a Christmas cake? Like there are layers of flavor and spicing in here that I'm just not getting in Oak Cross. And that's why I believe I gave this 4.25, and here I'm all the way down to 3.5, although they're really both fantastic scotches. And as always, it comes down to palate, but for my palate, the richness, the layers of flavor and spice on here are just where it's at. So certainly if they're a similar price on the shelf and you haven't had either, I would recommend this. Now it is overall spicier, and this is overall lighter. So if you really are looking for a lighter fruit forward dram, Oak Cross might be for you. Look, thanks for joining me here. I'm hoping you're having a great week, and I'm hoping maybe yet this week I'll be able to talk to you guys again. Thanks for dropping in. Take care.